Are you tired of lugging around heavy, bulky tree stands, whether you're using a climber or a hang-on, and would prefer to hunt lighter and more mobile? If you said yes, then you need to check out the Tethered Mantis Saddle and Predator platform. For me, this setup has done a couple things for me over the past year and a half. I've definitely been more mobile, lighter, and when you get into those situations where maybe the wind switches on you or whatever, and in years past you didn't want to pull all your gear just because you didn't want to move it, didn't want to make additional noise and things of that nature, this kind of solved all those problems for me, and I'm able to kind of tear down quickly, make a move if I need to make a move, and get set up without losing a whole lot of hunting time. The other thing I do a lot more of with this is actually I'll still hunt my way through, or just kind of go into an area where I'd like to check out, scout with all my stuff on my back. It's super light, so I don't really even notice it, and I hunt to where I'm going, or I still hunt through to where I'm ultimately going to set up, which is a great benefit, has been a great benefit to me so far this year. If you're interested in all these things, then you need to head over to tetherednation.com, check out all their information related to saddle hunting, and release your inner tree ninja. First thing I do in the morning before a hunt is, of course, I have to have my morning coffee, and I'm sure most of you out there probably feel the same. Make sure you're filling your mug with Skull Brew coffee, as it is the only coffee company that is both 2% for conservation certified and, of course, donates 10% of their profits to conservation organizations who are helping us to secure the future of our wild places. So head to skullbrewcoffee.com and choose between 3 kilo roasts of coffee, and know that you are supporting conservation with every sip. All right, if you listen to this podcast for any length of time, you guys know that I am good friends with all the guys over at Exodus. And I want to give you a quick heads up that you should be checking out some of their content if you haven't already. They have a podcast out called Trail Cam Radio, and they release new episodes every Tuesday. So the day before you listen to this one, you could be listening to that one as well. They've done some deep dives with some great guests. You'll recognize some of these names as Jeff Sturgis, Dan Enfalt, and the Hunting Public. And they also jump into and talk to some less-known hunters who consistently are getting it done many times on public land. If you prefer to watch podcasts, if you're looking for some video content, they have a YouTube channel as well, and that is packed, of course, with great videos and interviews. One of the most popular ones they did is a candid interview with John Eberhardt, and if you know anything about John, you always get the straight dope from him. And for specifically my PA listeners, they just recently posted a public land big woods interview with Steve Shirk, which I consumed, and it is pretty awesome. This dude's killing hammers and getting on giant deer in Pennsylvania, so it's absolutely a must listen. So if you're looking for more whitetail content, especially here during the course of the season, you just can't get enough. Be sure to head over to their podcast, Trail Cam Radio, and their YouTube channel, Exodus Trail Cameras, and drop them a subscription or review, and let them know that Truth from the Stand sent you. If you're also in the market for a trail camera, over the last 4 years, of course, Exodus has consistently showed they build quality trail cameras that flat out just work. Of course, the best trail camera warranty, period. Every single camera is backed by a 5-year warranty and even comes with a theft and damage coverage. That's right, 5 years, literally half a decade, you'll be covered by the Exodus 5-year warranty. But more than likely, you won't need it because the cameras are built to last. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 146. You're listening to the Iowa Rut Log Day 3, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today it's just me solo. So this would be Rut Log number 2, day 3. I'm putting an extra one out because I just had a couple really cool encounters. So today was supposed to be kind of warm, and I had a few things I had to take care of. I think I might even mention that on yesterday's or the previous Rut Log. And I'm staying in a cabin, and I had to move cabins because I didn't have enough days at the one that I was staying. There was someone else that was coming into it, so one became available for my entire trip, so I had to move into that. It was just kind of fortuitous because the weather here was warming up today and wasn't looking great for the afternoon, so I thought today would be a good day to kind of get whatever errands I needed to get done, run to the grocery store, do all that kind of stuff that I haven't had a chance to do since I got here. And if you hear any background noises, I'm driving back from hunting now. So I was doing that, and then I don't know if I mentioned in the last podcast, but my bank, for whatever reason, shut off my
my bank card and said there was fraudulent activity on it and deactivated it. So it's like I've been rolling with no bank card, just using a credit card because that's all I have, and there's none of my bank does not exist around here, or at least in close proximity. So I'm kind of screwed in that regard. But I have my credit card, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to the grocery store, do what I need to do, and then I was going to bust out and hunt, because as I was on my way home today from my morning hunt, I saw a piece of property that was public that had a bunch of CRP, and then a big draw, and then more CRP, a small just like hedgerow in the middle of the CRP, and then went to another big draw that was off of a bunch of ag. And so it was a little bit of a hike, but I thought if I could get in there early today and make my way toward that, I could probably hang all my stuff, get my saddle on a tree, hunt the evening there, leave it there, and then go back in the morning to try to catch any of the movement coming out of feeding. And there's not a ton, like that strip of timber, and I hadn't made it there yet, but it looks like it would probably be like a major highway for deer to get from food back to bed or wherever they're going, because otherwise they'd just be kind of walking out in the wide open of this huge CRP field. So that was my plan for today. So I went in and did my morning hunt, went into that ridge that I hunted the day before, left my stuff in the tree, got in there, didn't bump any deer on the way in, set up. Shortly after daybreak, or I guess not shortly after daybreak, but early in the morning, I did a little rattling sequence, and it was super cool because I rattled in my first deer. I usually don't rattle at all in Pennsylvania. I'll rattle a little bit in Ohio once in a while, but I hit the horns, hit the antlers together, and had a little 6-point show up. Not a shooter, but it was just cool to kind of have that happen. Sat there the rest of the morning, and then got down, went and ran my errands like I was saying, and then, make a long story short, I basically was headed over to do my grocery shopping, and I went to the first store, and they didn't accept American Express. So sometimes when you get into these small towns, they don't accept all credit cards because of merchant fees or whatever. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but I was screwed because I don't have a bank card and I can't get cash, and so I basically had to drive around to another town and go to a grocery store there to see if they used American Express so I could pick up my stuff, which sucked because I was really trying to get back over to this other piece of public that I saw on my way from my morning hunt, because I knew it was going to be a little bit of a hike, and I knew I wanted to take my time in, and I knew I wanted to stop every so often because there was a couple high points as you're walking through that CRP that I could stop and glass and just see, hell, maybe I see a buck bedded in the CRP, and and if the wind's right, maybe I can put a stalk on, and see if I can't get close enough to get a shot. So did all that running around. I had to move my cabin, did all that. And my goal was really to try to get out of the house by 1, get back over there by like 20 after 1 and start hiking in, because I knew it was probably going to take me like 40-ish minutes to hike in, and I could get over there, probably be in a tree by a little after 2 and have a couple hours to hunt and be in good shape. Well, that kind of went out the window because I didn't get back to my cabin till like 2-ish. I left there, end of the day, I didn't start actually hiking in until like 3 o'clock, and it's warm, so I was wanting to try to go slow because I didn't want to start sweating and and stinking up the place and stuff like that. So that was the plan. So I was like, what, if nothing else, if I can just hike to that piece of timber today and probably just hang my saddle in platform and everything, that way tomorrow morning I can get in quick because it's supposed to be kind of warm tomorrow. I can pack really light tomorrow morning, and I can kind of zip in there, not break a sweat, be quick, be up a tree, and catch that morning movement. And that was kind of the game plan. So I'm making my way through. I hit the first little like row of trees, off this one main draw, and there's some rubs in there. So I'm like, okay, some buck sign, nothing major, nothing crazy, but it's always good to know that there's deer in the area. So kind of make my way through that, and then I get to the next draw, and I have to cross this little stream, and there's a goat path of a deer trail that crosses this stream. And so I kind of thought to myself, I was like, man, I'd maybe even consider hanging, hopping in my saddle here at some point. But there was I could hear a guy up above me on the top of the ridge. There's another, farm that's up there. I believe it's just like a hay field that's up there. But he and his son were cutting wood. I could hear him talking and stuff like that, and running the chainsaw and stuff like that. So I wasn't going to set up there today because I just, pretty sure there weren't going to be any deer moving through there. So made my way up on top out of that draw into the next kind of like CRP field, walking through all these little trees, get to a clearing, I can see a power line, and I knew that there was a small little hedgerow of trees that were there, and looking at the top, I knew it was going to be going down, a pretty decent drop in that CRP field, and then back up the other side, and then I'll be able to see the wood line, the timber line of the timber that I want to get into. But I'm going to have to kind of make a hard right to get up to the point that I want to be at, to try to catch any evening movement coming to food. So I decided, like, as I got to like the very crest of that CRP field, once I got out of that, across that stream, through that draw, and I was, truth be told, was kind of tired, starting to sweat, and I was like, you know what, let me just stop right here and let me just, take like a 5-10 minute break and catch my breath, do a little glassing, see if I can see anything out here before I start barreling through, because this grass is like, knee to chest high in places, and there's virtually, no possible way for me to, slip through there super quiet. I mean, you can go as slow as you want, but you're still gonna make noise. And so before I bust anything out, of that small little, timber line, that little draw that I had to walk through next, I was like, let me just glass and see if I see anything. And then if I do, I was like, I might just stay here and glass the rest of the night and then back out, and then kind of know that there's deer in here for the next day, or that they'll likely be coming back. Maybe not. They're deer. They may not do what I think they're going to do, but end result is I know that there's deer there, so I know they like to be there. So it's as good a spot as any at this point to set up on. So I glassed for like whatever it was. It might have been 10 minutes. It might have been a little less than 10 minutes. And I decided, I was like, all right, I don't see any deer, so I'm going to go ahead and start making my move over toward, up over through this draw, up on top of the next CRP field and over to that timber line. And I picked my backpack up off the ground, and I picked my sticks up off the ground and threw them on my shoulder. And I literally took one step, and I just heard all hell break loose. And I looked, right on the edge of that draw, that timber, that I was like, man, it's just like a little hedgerow. The biggest deer I've ever seen took off running across the field. Now, I ranged it after I got done, and it was about 80 yards when I saw him. And from 80 yards, there was no doubt in my mind that he was a shooter. His body looked like a horse. When he was running, like, you could feel his hooves hit the ground. I mean, just a big animal. Now, I'm not going to venture a guess of what his score would be, because I didn't see him long enough. I don't know how many points he had. All I know is his frame was huge. And he busted ass out across that CRP field into this next block of timber that's also public, so I could try to get in there and hunt if I want to. But what I thought was let me go down and see what, where was he bedded. And so I walked down, I found his bed, and it's just this, I mean, there's literally not a tree to hang a saddle in this entire little piece. It's all just like super thick, nasty, overgrown little draw in the middle of a CRP field. And so as I kind of was walking around, I found a place that I can set up. And so I thought, I could possibly set up on the ground and try to hunt him. And so then I walked a little further, and I ended up bumping a doe out of there. So it seems to me like that he cut a doe out, and I feel like it's still just a little bit too early for them to be in estrus yet. But he had a doe in there, and so I'm thinking, like, this might be his little hidey hole, right? Like, where, maybe this is where he likes to do his business. If nothing else, I mean, he can hear and see things coming from a mile away, and is pretty bulletproof in there. And I can probably guarantee you there's not been too many people that have walked through there. I didn't see a single bit of human sign in there, and I would say he's probably pretty safe in there. So I'm betting he's pretty comfortable. So what I ended up doing was just backing out. I didn't go any further. I didn't make my way over to that timber line, because I really just thought, rather than walking through, busting up any other deer, potentially, I'm probably better off kind of surveying that little bedding area, figure out where I'd like to set up for tomorrow, just completely back out, and plan to get in there super early tomorrow, beat him back to bed, and set up on the ground and wait for him to show up. So the only thing I have left to do is I need to check the wind to make sure I have the right wind to get in and do that, especially since I'm going to be on the ground. And so I'll hunt him in the morning on the ground at that little draw, draw of timber there in the middle of the CRP field. And then if he doesn't show by mid-morning or so, I'll then work my way. It'll be an all day hunt, so I'll work my way then over to that timber line and walk in there, kind of scout that, and set up then for the afternoon and the evening. And then I'll make the call at that point whether or not I'm going to go back in the following morning into that spot, or whether I'm going to try my hand at hunting that deer on the ground again, depending on the wind. So, I've been trying to take a camera and stuff for all my hunts, so far, and I've yet to get any deer on film. And so I'm thinking of ditching some gear tomorrow, just to be a little lighter, because it is a bit of a hike. And of course that'll be whenever I actually see good deer that I would be able to film and stuff like that. But I'm probably going to shed some gear and get a little lighter and go in as light as I can and try to set up on the ground, try to hunt that deer. I was going to get a ghillie suit this off season, and I didn't, because I just thought, I was like, how often am I going to use it? And this would be the perfect time. Would have been the perfect use case for it. So that's the hunt, or my hunt for here. I guess today is November 3rd, I think. So that's the hunt for November 3rd. It's been super cool in Iowa so far. I've seen a couple bucks, 2 bucks today. I saw a buck, 2 bucks the other day, the first day that I was here, or the first 2 days I was here. So I'm seeing deer. Still just kind of bouncing around, making a plan. The main spot I'm going to go to, whenever things really kind of kick off here in probably like the next 2 or 3 days. I'm just kind of staying out of there right now until things get right. It's supposed to be warm again a little bit tomorrow, so I'm willing to take a flyer on a couple of these places I don't know much about. And then once the temp drops, which I think is supposed to happen on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, it's supposed to get back down in like the 30s. I think there's maybe a little bit of snow in the forecast. So once that happens, then that spot that John and I talked about yesterday in the Shimmick, I think I'll dive in there and probably pull a couple all-day sits in that general area. So for now, that is the update for today. I hope everyone's doing well out there. I hope you're finding success. I hope you guys are wrapping tags around cervids. And until next time, I appreciate y'all listening, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and what the hell. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Skull Brew Coffee Company, Gumleaf USA Boots, Obsession Bows, Ramcat Broadheads, Trophy Taker Rests, and Dead Downwind. And until next time, we'll see y'all.